Okay, good morning, everybody. Because we have uh, a global audience, we are not going to wait for the room to be full before we start. So I'm going to start by setting the tone or the theme for today, basically exploring AI in education, the opportunities and challenges in Africa. I will like to thank EDT, our partners, for this opportunity to partner with them to deliver this session. We have audiences from Liberia, Sierra Leone, Nigeria. I think we have some joining us from South Africa, Eswatini. We sent out invites to a few other partners across Africa. So we're being streamed live in all these areas. So, what are the opportunities and the challenges of deploying AI in education across Africa? Let me start with McKinsey World Economic Forum and World Bank saying there are close to 85 million people that will be needed to fill tech jobs by 2035. Africa has the potential to solve this huge challenge. Why? Because Africa has the fastest growing and most youthful population in the world compared to a declining global workforce. Both Japan and Germany, for instance, have an average age of 48 and 47 years respectively. Can you guess the average age in Africa? Anybody, average age in Africa? Echo. Sorry? 19. 19. And various surveys indicates that 75% of global CEOs are reporting difficulty in finding the talent they need compared to 31% in 2010. So in 2022, 75% of global CEOs are reporting difficulty in finding the talent they need. The rate of growth in Africa's young and growing population means that our workforce will be larger than China's and India's by 2035, only 11 years from now. And by the end of the century, Africa will be home to 40% of the world's population. No continent comes close to solving the global shortage of technology talent than Africa. The exciting stats will mean nothing if we are unable to convert Africa's population into talent. A force of 1 billion by 2035 doesn't mean a talent pool of 1 billion. Population does not necessarily equate talent. It must be transformed through education and skills development. And I'm quoting Fred Swanecker, who's for the last 20 years been active in the talent space. I think we need to launch a guerrilla movement to extract our talent and polish them and offer them like we do our diamonds and golds in the Zooks of Dubai, Tiffany's of New York, and so on. Now, Fred and his team will this year train 50,000 in in-demand skills like software engineering, data science, cloud computing, cybersecurity, Salesforce, AR and VR, etc. in the next decade. They are aiming to train 5 to 10 million people, young talents, by 2035. They are also infusing aspects of critical thinking, ethics, values, collaboration and communication, leadership, project management, etc. into tech talent. And they are developing it as skill so they can outcompete tech talent from other regions who may lack some of these soft skills. Now, both the challenges and opportunities are like a double-edged sword, and a few entities cannot do it alone. That's why it's good to be having projects like We Think Code in South Africa, Moringa School in Kenya, Decagon in Nigeria, and so on. We have to think unconventionally and reimagine education across Africa. Since July last year, we have been on a mission to build and position a business as a Pan-African entity with about a footprint of about 30 to 40 countries by 2030. How are we going to do that? We've started working in Liberia, Sierra Leone, opened offices in South Africa and Eswatini to serve the SADC bloc, Nigeria, Botswana, Lesotho, and so on. So as we engage today, let's begin to think about the following key issues. India, for instance, generates about $230 billion of forex by exporting tech talent. Anybody working in tech or a tech worker will spend money in restaurants, will have an Uber driver, they will spend money in shops, they will bring wealth and drive the middle class in the country. Same for Africa. Presents us an opportunity, a fantastic opportunity to become the next India by building a large pool of technology talent and attracting foreign exchange into the continent and building the middle class that will actually fuel the economy. How do we make Africa the next India or the next China with the talent to power the African economies? And how do we solve our big challenges like healthcare, climate change, agric infrastructure, and education? I would like to introduce Zhao, who is joining us from South Africa as the first member of our panel, to talk to us about Intel's work in AI. Intel have a package that starts from AI for citizens, AI for youth, AI for current workforce, AI for future workforce, and then AI for governance. But for the purposes of this conversation, Zhao is going to focus on AI for youth and talk about the South African experience and what they've been doing. There's a Global Impact Festival that Intel holds, which brings together students from different countries. Ever since it started, the only country that's been able to present a team has been South Africa. We in Ghana have started work in building capacity in that area. We've trained about 15 master coaches, and we're starting with schools to support the projects and we demystify AI and get a lot more of the population have an understanding of this important tool, which is changing every aspect of our lives and our businesses. Thank you very much. Over to you, Zhao.
Excellent. Thank you, Richard. I like the way you articulated our programs. Indeed, a strategic partner. Folks, my name is João. So I just wanted to bring a bit of a different lens to the conversation of artificial intelligence. So I think we need to step back and looking at this young population, understand what is happening in the ICT industry. Now, there are five main technologies that are really going to drive a lot of future jobs. One of them is cloud computing. One is IoT or edge, known as edge. Then you have 5G, and 5G is not 3G plus 2G, it's a whole new architecture. Then you have AI, and you have sensing. So when you look at these technologies that are really driving the fourth industrial revolution, and you look at what is happening or where the students are going with regards to their further studies, there's a bit of a mismatch. Okay, and these are not Intel numbers. You can look at PwC's, World Economic Forums. The reality is there's not enough students going down the avenue of these technologies. As an organization that is socially responsible, we have our own 2030 vision, which falls under RISE. And the I for RISE is inclusivity. And hence, we created the Intel Digital Readiness programs that have five pillars, like Richard said. You have AI for citizens, which is really to demystify what AI is for every citizen. You have AI for youth, which is already becomes project based and it's designed for high schools for reskilling. We we then have AI for future workforce, which really focuses around vocational colleges. And the reason for vocational colleges is, be it if you're going to become a mechanic, a plumber, an electrician, you're going to have all these technologies within that environment. So it's not just your data science that is really going to have access to AI. When you start looking at use cases from agriculture to hospitality to transportation, you have artificial intelligence in all of that. And then we have, which is just as critical and just as important, AI for leaders, which is really for the policymakers. Because when you start looking at policies within your organizations or within your respective countries, it brings a whole new lens to what type of policies governments put in place. So typically, that's Intel's response from an inclusivity perspective to be able to assist governments around the world. Now, when we talk about AI for youth, specifically in South Africa, one of the conversations when we have these type of conversations with leaders within our geography, or should I say, the emerging markets, they tend to say, well, we're trying to get basic ICT literacy skills. However, colleagues, these students, this new generation, giving them the access, it's unreal what they can do. So when we launched this program, we created the Intel AI Global Impact Festival. And there you have students between ages 13 to 17 or 18 plus that send their projects. And these are students that are running these programs or doing these programs in their respective countries. And we're talking about Poland, China, India, the US, Germany. And South Africa, last year, they started a program for the first time. One of the respectable provinces, which is GD, or Gauteng Department of Education, which this program is part of their skills framework. And what ended up happening, there was 1,200 or 1,200 and something of programs or projects that were sent. We have an external company that actually vets it, so it's not Intel. And out of those over 1,000 programs, three South African programs actually made it to the global stage to compete against students of other years and other countries, of course. And in the age group of 13 to 17, there was a group of three young girls, and these are not girls from private schools, colleagues. These are girls that are really true from the emerging markets, and they won a global regional award. So one of the reasons I'm saying this is that as we look at the opportunity with the youth that we have from a continent perspective with the one lens, and if we just put in the infrastructure required and give access to this youth, it is unreal how quickly and how they can compete against markets in India, China, wherever it may be. So, Richard, I hope this has given you and colleagues a little bit of a lens of what we're doing in the continent and what we're doing globally.
Okay, can you talk a bit about the use cases? I mean, I've seen Intel doing stuff around agric in Poland using AI for climate change in all sorts of areas. If you can share some
Sure.
experiences around those
So
areas.
the way the program is designed, if we look at all use cases, Richard, if you look at retail, automotive, agriculture, wherever it may be, AI is applicable. But the way the program is designed is to these projects that the students come up with are actually for local problems. So let me give you an example. There's a student that I was having a chat with the other day in one of the colleges, and he is developing his algorithm, and it's around understanding who's really distressed in queues in hospitals. And then I asked him, okay, perfect, but why? He says, well, in a lot of uh, more hospitals that are not in your major cities, the know-how of nurses or of administration to really identify who's in distress is not at levels that in the big cities. So what tends to happen is you arrive at the hospital, you sit in the queue, and you wait for your turn. And went on to just try and prompt and understand, okay, but I think this is a great use case. I think this can be very helpful. But he said, João, the reason I'm actually doing this is because I lost my mother in one of those chairs. Yeah. So when you look at how AI can impact positively in the citizen's life, right? The use cases have to be aligned to the local needs, right? So this use case or an example that I just gave you in a hospital, probably is not applicable to a student in another country or even within our country, right? So the use cases in everything that you do, you can utilize AI. You still with us, Richard?
One. Okay. Joe,
Okay.
I was in Joburg. I visited the Saibono space and then the Waverley Grammar space. Can you talk to us about how it started, your involvement with those spaces, and ultimately, what projects did they present at the Global Impact Festival?
Okay, so Cybono is Gauteng Departments of Education arm for all the STEM implementations within schools, right? So we trained their master trainers, right? Cybono has master trainers or coaches, if you want to put it that way, in various schools within Gauteng, right? They started the project beginning of last year, right? And it's a phased approach. This program is not something that you do like very wide from one because you have to adjust it for local context. Waverley Girls High School was one of the schools where Sabano is running, robotics and started implementing AI for youth, right? And then out of that specific school, that was the school that actually they sent in 4 projects, only 3 made it. And only 3 made it. And one of the use cases was actually to help the principal. So back to different use cases. So one of the challenges that the principal has at the school is that sometimes students are not wearing the right uniform. So what it does, they have a camera by the entrance and it's feeding information to the principal saying, out of X amount of girls that have come in every this morning, X amount are wearing the right uniform and X amount are wearing the wrong uniform. So something that was to assist the principal in what the principal is trying to fix in the school. And Richard, this was a 15 between 15 and 16-year-old girls, right? That's just an example.
All right, thank you very much. Please stay with us. I'll come back to you. Let me introduce Douglas Aite and Darlington Akogo, who are joining us on our panel, exploring AI across different spaces. So, Douglas, I first met you at the Google event, and sorry, Darlington, I first met you at the Google event, and we're talking about AI and its applications in different spaces. Tell us a bit about your work in AI and how we can support the deployment, not just in primary school, but across the education sector in Ghana.
Yeah, so my work involves, AI applied to maybe a few different areas. So healthcare, agriculture, education. But in education, one component we are focused on is the education of AI itself, right? Before looking at how do you apply AI to improve education. So, we've been running training programs. We've been teaching AI for quite some years now. So Douglas and I actually met primarily through that medium. So he was at the biomedical engineering department in University of Ghana, and I was basically on this AI evangelism tour. So I was going around talking to anyone who would listen, and you know before it became sexy, right? So I came around, spoke, and then 2017, right? Wow, even I am. So yes, then I actually met, one of our brilliant engineers, actually from his department, who came to join our team. We've worked on AI for healthcare, using it to improve diagnosis, everything from radiology to microscopy. We've worked on AI for agriculture, being able to detect diseases, pests in the fields, and then also in education. So this quite a very interesting area. There's a lot of things that you can use AI for when it comes to education. Everything from adaptive to personalized learning, grading, and then with the craziness of large language models now, ChatGPT, what it means for education. We have, yeah. So there's a lot
We're
going on
going to
there.
go there. I mean, somebody was telling me that pace at which AI is going, teachers need to be worried. They could become endangered species. But you hold that thought. We'll come back to that. They said if you spell the doom and gloom for somebody looking to push an inventory, it's counter-effective. But the reality on the ground is that the impact on education is happening at much fast. I mean, nearly every week something comes out. So, Douglas, talk to us about your work, what you do. I know you were involved in the Intel Master Coach program and so on. And I just realized that look, at a minimum level, the students should have some background in at least Python. So, talk to us about the work you do and the way we are trying to demystify AI in schools.
Okay, thank you for having me, Douglas, and I've been working with Coral Reef to implement AI education across Ghana. Currently, we've started um, setting up the lab, so, and then also speaking to educators, and we are on. We started going to schools, talking to them, and we want to deploy AI education by training teachers who are the key people when it comes to reaching out to the mass students. Because if the teachers themselves are not well trained, it becomes very difficult hiring people, training them to deploy. But if the teachers are already there, then it's best to train the teachers. So we want to upskill the teachers with AI education. So first, we are starting with the demystifying AI across Ghana. More schools have signed up through Coral Reef intervention, and we hoping that during the summer break, we'll start the deployment of training to teachers. Now, this is also part of the bridging the gap by having stakeholder engagement and also talking to administrators, because they are the key people you meet first before you get to teachers and then the students. So we're still talking to them around that. But in the past, we've been able to train young children at the age of 6 who are in grade 1 to use visual block-based coding like Scratch to start learning about AI. So they do object classification, human body part detection, and they also use, because the models are there, the NLP models are all embedded in the software. So children at young as 6 have started even developing this, and they are using the teachable machine to learn about AI. So the space is green. The challenges are there. We may be talking about it, but the progress at which we are taking this, I think, is in the right direction, working with Coral Reef.
Okay. I mean, a bit of a background on the work we're doing. The first flagship project is with the Ministry of Education, and it was to set up 700 smart labs, train 1,400 teachers. The impact, probably, assuming there's about 1,000 students in a school, 700 schools, about 700,000. We'll probably look at, if you're looking at a hub and spoke model, which from a district spreads out to other towns, you can easily affect about 1 million students. Now, the original intention, AI wasn't a rave back then, but you suddenly have an opportunity to deploy in 700 schools. So it will come with this attendance challenge. I want to explore what your thoughts are about AI in not just primary, secondary school, but also the universities and also TVET. TVET tends to be a space we don't pay a lot of attention to, but with all the support coming, with all the technology coming, the devices and so on, talk to us a bit about how we can improve those spaces using the tools that AI presents, the opportunities it presents.
Yeah, that's a really loaded question because it's a long list. But I think we can look at it from different angles, right? So when it comes to education, the whole goal is basically to teach or to, give a young person a set of knowledge and skills, and over time they can utilize that to improve their society. The goal doesn't change, it's just the complexity of the knowledge you want to give them that changes as they go along the steps. So the key thing is that if you look at different models of education, ideally, if we lived in a perfect world, every student should have a teacher. So one student to a teacher, but it's not practical because you have more students than you have teachers. But then AI potentially bridges that gap. So you can have one classroom, 60 students in some parts of Ghana, but then each of those 60 students can have their own private tutor that even understands them better than the teacher. So they know their gaps. They can look at their performance across different subjects. If it's math, are you having issues with algebra? If you're having issues with algebra, why are you having issues with algebra? For me, personally, one of the interesting things that I had to figure out was what mode of delivery even worked best for me. On certain subjects, video works best. In certain subjects, it's text. If you don't know that difference, you spend a lot of time reading, rereading the same thing over again and over again. You never get this. And a lot of students actually face this. So if you have an AI system that can just step in and let you know that for this content, if I give you the right, analogy, if I use the right content, the right format, you better understand this. It bridges that gap. And that applies regardless of whether it's, primary school, senior high school, or even tertiary education. Those same principles apply. And these technologies actually do exist. That's also another thing we need to realize. It's not, theory. There are platforms like, I think one is called Thinker. There's Carnegie Learning. There are all these platforms that, even there's a new one that Khan Academy just launched. These are platforms that exist. You can leverage it depending on what stage you are within that journey. That's one thing. So that will be connected to the idea of personalized education and adaptive learning. The other side is even so one thing I'm really, really excited about, but also a bit concerned about, is the implication of large language models to education, right? So what does ChatGPT?
Ethics, the ethical dimension,
Yes.
students. When ChatGPT first came out, the New York Board of Education banned it.
Yes.
And then a few months down the line, they actually had a meeting with Open to have a conversation. Okay, how do we adapt this to suit our students and our learning environment? Because, I mean, the horses have already bolted the stables. So how do you engage the tool to make you a lot more efficient and effective in the sort of things that you do? So the ethical dimension and people using it for all sorts of is something that comes up a lot. And nearly every week I'm seeing tools for teachers
Yes.
that is supposed to help them lesson planning.
Exactly.
I mean,
Even
it's
grading.
grading. In HR, it's being used for recruitment. It's being used for KPIs. It's being used for assessments to decide how you're performing and so on. Yeah. Okay. So, sorry, make your point.
Oh yeah,
cut in.
so I mean that's it. So you have those areas. Even you can have AI systems look at essays and analyze it, grade it for you. But the other side of things where I feel for the educational system, because change is good, but when it hits you abrupt, it's a bit even for people. So let's flip this on the other side, right? So my team, we are mainly engineers. We develop solutions, right? When people realize that, oh, you can actually use AI to generate code, so you can use it to do a lot of the coding. For a moment that they were excited. Then for a moment later, they were like, wait, AI can do my job. Yay. No, AI can do my job. So you probably need less of even me that I'm building the AI system, right? Yeah. And so even for the disruptors themselves, they are scared of being disrupted. So if in what feels like a couple of weeks, ChatGPT goes out, you give your students assignments, and then they come with the perfect essays, the perfect answers, and now you don't even know whether it's your student or they use ChatGPT. We have to acknowledge that that's a scary situation, right? Because, we use the analogy of the calculator, search engine, the impact on education. And it's true, those things had sharp impact. There are even people who protested using calculators in school. But I would say this is a bit abrupt. So the educational system has to respond to it. Like you said, right? We've already opened Pandora's box. There's no returning. What I am hoping would happen is that education evolves to the point where it is not as much about how much you have stored in your head. Because even with ChatGPT, so when two people are using ChatGPT, what makes their result different? The way they frame the question, the way they think about the problem. So let's gear education more towards problem solving. We do that, but then we need to do more of that. So less about, okay, can you generate exactly what I'm expecting? But then can you also reframe the problem? Can you look at a problem and reimagine it from a different direction? Because if it's based on the result, you can't tell the difference anymore.
Generally, when a technology comes and moves at breakneck speed, regulators struggle to catch up. And I invited the Ministry of Education and GES for this conversation. I understand some are joining online. So it's important for, what does it mean for how you assess students? What does it mean for how you grade them and so on? A level of creativity is important. Otherwise, the problem you highlight will come forth. Douglas, what are your thoughts on how we support? Okay, can you talk to us about the challenges or the barriers that we face in deploying some of these solutions? Remember, there's always an issue about access, equity, and inclusion across the different segments. To get a decent computer that powers and crunches the data, a Core i7 or Core whatever. For most households, it's quite a heavy. So, what are your challenges, and how do we deal with some of these things?
Yes, the challenges has to do with infrastructure. Um, the infrastructure gap is huge. When you go to certain schools in rural Ghana and even those in the cities, they don't even have a ICT lab. So how do you deploy AI education to them? Fine, you can talk to them about it, but then it should be more practical where they experience it, they build it, because we're talking about practical. So at the end of the day, infrastructure needs to be set up. Internet connectivity, they don't have data, there's no internet around some of the schools in those rural communities, so there's no devices like laptops, there's lack of internet connectivity, so it becomes very difficult. Then you need to revert back to using books to teach and making sure that the teacher is always present when you want to make sure that every child has their own tutor, like a chatbot who can assist them personalize their learning. But then the infrastructure deficit is huge, and we need stakeholders in the private sector to support this by making sure that, and government as a whole, because from our side, trying to evangelize by making the knowledge available and all of that will require that there is a facility where students can go and practice. The internet has to be available, laptops has to be available. But if those things are not available, then it becomes like, yeah, I have the knowledge, I can practice it. So infrastructure is key. And I like the fact that Coral Reef supports schools to have a smart lab where there are devices being deployed, and then internet connectivity, everything being provided. But then we required a lot of support from their side. They must have support to be able to help students in that regard.
Yeah, if you look at the statistics, they're saying about 7 million students in public schools and about 2 million in private schools. If you're deploying devices that will touch 700,000, what do you call it? That's a drop in the ocean. Let me ask Intel. Zhao, how have you guys dealt with the infrastructure challenges in South Africa and other parts of Africa that you work in?
Yeah, so you know, the conversation of infrastructure always comes up. And the reality is there's a lot of infrastructure that has been deployed. Okay, some of it is very old, for example. Some of it that is actually just there gathering dust. Because if you put infrastructure into a school, but you don't have a program utilizing the infrastructure, that's when that's throwing away money, right? So in South Africa, there's been a lot of technology deployed, and there's some tweaks to run this program. For example, real sense camera, but you don't need 10 real sense cameras per schools. You get away with 2 to 3, or the neuro compute stick. So those are just little tweaks. And also, it's important to look at this with a different lens. And let's take your school of 1,000 students that you spoke about, Richard. Let's say that all the 1,000 students run the program. The reality is the non-technical part. Absolutely, you can run that and demystify it through the 1,000 students. But there's going to be a smaller percentage of students that actually then wants to go to the next level program. Very much like you look at any other extramural activity. My son plays chess, and your son probably plays soccer. Not the 1,000 students are all playing chess. So that's a little bit of what we see, how it actually works on ground. And back to just Darling, just one of the conversations that AI can replace teachers. No, AI will never replace teachers. What they can then do, what AI can do, is actually assist teachers in the classroom. So, for example, if you look at the mundane thing of a teacher having to do a class register or having to mark all lists, you can use technology to take that mundane part, but that human interaction, that understanding, that feeling that teachers have with students, that technology still won't replace.
Thank you very much. I think we have about 15 minutes more to wrap up this panel. So give me your final thoughts on this, where you see us going as a country. What do you think we must do? I have my own ideas. I mean, infrastructure is definitely one. Teacher training is definitely another. Even the parents' understanding of the technology and how that shapes how they support their kids in choosing different careers. I mean, if an algorithm is going to replace a routine task or has started replacing a routine task, um, what do we do?
Yeah, so I mean, there's a lot we can do, but I agree with you. I think infrastructure is probably the biggest decision we can make as a country, because everything we are talking about, AI requires some computing device. And those who really need access to quality education are not the kids that are going to Galaxy International and Ghana and BIS and the rest, right? They also already have access to those computing devices. So I like that, you're working on bridging that gap. We need those who are in the remote areas to have access to those devices. After they have access to it, the actual AI component, the software bit, is a bit easier because there are a lot of tools that are already available. Even in Ghana, we have eCampus, right? You have all the softwares that can run, but let's solve that. So I would like for Ghana, GES, to come up with a strategy that says that working with Coral Reef, right? Working with Coral Reef and other partners, how do we get devices, computing devices to every kid? I remember we had some policy back then, one laptop per child. I'll leave it at that. But yeah, we definitely need, especially those in the rural areas, to get access to the devices. Beyond that, we need to relook at the future of education. So where do we want to be? How do we want to leverage this technology? On the way here, I just saw that during the MPs meeting, one of them proposed that they should regulate AI, which, it's a healthy conversation to have. And Ghana has its national AI strategy. We need to look at where we want to be. So there's another thing we are working on. So we are working with African Union to create continental AI strategy. And one of the biggest ideas in there is that we have a very youthful population. If we can do with that youthful population what China did with manufacturing, then do something similar in AI, data science, train our young people to have the AI skill set, it could transform Africa, because this is a skill set that is much needed, right? And we've been doing training programs for quite a while now. We've run Miller AI Institute. We've done this in Ghana, Nigeria. We've trained young people. Currently working with KNUST. We are coming up with new curriculums for, not secondary schools. So bachelor's, master's, and PhD. Yeah, we need more of this. If we can actually strategically, as a country, as a continent, say that we want to prepare young people, give them the right tools to improve, we can leverage this to grow astronomically. So we just need to have the right strategy and buy-in from all the key stakeholders.
Thank you very much. So it's about reimagining education. Douglas, what are your thoughts, final thoughts on how we use AI to reimagine education, improve our talent pool? There's another group, those that don't make the transition from, say, SHS to university. There's a chunk of them. What happens to them? And those unemployed graduates. Some time ago, I don't know if it was politics or it was true, we were told we had 1 million unemployed graduates. Where are they? What are their spaces? How can we use tools like this to give them extra skills. There's an idea that we're piloting that is okay, we top up the digital skills, but find you remote internships, which ultimately hopefully leads you to it. So you could be in Ghana, but then be coding or programming or doing something for a company based out of, I don't know, India, Australia, and so on and so forth. So those two key areas are important. We tend to ignore them. And special needs. Last time I saw a program where some AI tool had been used to, a paraplegic had suddenly gotten some movement. So those applications are happening. But coming back to Ghana, Africa, I think there's a golden opportunity, like how we leapfrogged from landlines to mobile phones. I think it's a good time to be exploring some of these things. So final word from you, Douglas, and then we go to Jean for his final words. Then I think the second panel, which is 100% is virtual, will be joining us as well.
Okay, thank you. In my initial statement, I mentioned that infrastructure deficit is something that we need to bridge. But however, we need to propose solutions because those in the rural areas where the challenges are because they don't even have the devices, they don't have the connectivity. So how do we, when we talk about inclusion, we need to make sure that we bring all of them on board. My proposal is that we should have community centers where these tools are set up with laptops, with internet connectivity, because you can't set up in all rural schools, right? It will be more difficult and it is going to be more expensive on government and other stakeholders. But then when you have community centers where it is powered by internet connectivity or the laptops are there, then students or the children can go there and have those skills and go back home. Now, the skills they acquire with time, this is what is going to happen. That child will not move from the rural area, come to the city, or even decide to move out of Ghana, but will be in the village there and even apply for a remote job anywhere in the world and get employed. Yeah. Sit at the rural area, make money there, and build a community. By the time you realize that person is donating laptops to support. That is one approach. Secondly, repurposing corporate assets in terms of device to support rural communities or AI deployment in schools, where if a company is having a laptop and after 3 years they want to downsize it or even donate it and get money or something, right? Instead of selling it or throwing it away, right? All they need to do is to repurpose by targeting NGOs and organizations that are deploying AI education and other STEM-related education in Ghana and in any part of Africa, donate it to them, and then they can use this to set up those community centers where children can go and learn these skills from, right? So these are practical solutions that are a bit minimum for stakeholders to take advantage of to help in the deployment. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Final words from Joe.
Yes. So Richard Douglas Wellington, you can have thousands of programs. If you don't have vision and you don't have leadership, you're not going to go anywhere, right? So to give you an example, AI for Youth in India was actually launched by the Prime Minister. So when you have the leadership and they want to move, even with all the challenges like Douglas's example of community centers, and that's the hub to support the schools. You know, if there's will, and you have that government mechanism of wanting to scale this, you know, it's not one size fits all. Some areas might be community centers, other areas might be schools. As long as there's political will and you see this as an opportunity for the country, you make it happen.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, guys. Thank you for this panel. I have another I've got about 5 minutes. Darlington, I mean, quite interested about the Ghana AI strategy. What is it all about? What are we looking to achieve with that strategy? Is it something that exists on paper? Is it something that is being actualized in some concrete form? Or is just something sitting there gathering dust?
We'll find out. So, government has actually done, through the backing of GIZ, they've done about 2 or 3 AI governance projects. So the first one is Ethical AI Framework for Ghana, which was also connected to data governance, right? So some of the ideas in there is how do we ensure that AI solutions reflect the values of Ghanaians, who we are, our culture, everything is embedded in there. But also, how do we do this in a way that does not abuse, privacy? So data protection, all of this component goes in there. For the national AI strategy, yeah, something similar along those lines. But you see, the thing about this was the structure is that GIZ funded this. Then it was, the work was done by a consulting firm, then packaged with the backing of Smart Africa, packaged and then now brought to the doorstep of the Ministry of Communication and Digitalization. They kind of refine it themselves, do their final stakeholder engagement, then they turn it into an actual strategy that gets the buy-in from everyone. It's a slow process, but to be honest, it's not really, that's what happens anywhere in the world. Like, before something becomes a national strategy or a bill, policy, and all those stuff, they are really slow. I am hoping that it doesn't stay just as a paper, that we actually take these things and implement them. So one of the ideas that was pushed just today from the news I was reading was one MP was proposing maybe we should have an AI council. I think it's a good idea. So that's how we kind of make sure that this national strategy isn't just paper. There's people that can be held responsible to making sure that those things are implemented. Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much. I am going to yield to the online team, the EDT team. We'll take about 5-10 minutes break, and then they can come on what time? 11:15, 11 o'clock. All right. Thank you very much.